What? Are you jamming or rapping?
I'm just stuck in a loop.
That sounds like loop, delay.
Yeah, so when we were preparing for this one,
we were preparing for it?
Okay, when we were trying to prepare for this one, in the last 5 minutes or so, we were listening to old style 80s and 70s, and I was just thinking about Cabaret Voltaire and what they did to the electronic music. So I'm stuck in a loop.
That's okay. While you were doing that, I was half still digesting the apple pie and a little bit of coffee that we had. He only had coffee, which means that he's going to be crazy as a squirrel today.
Yes, thank you for that. Anyways, your topic,
hello, Scrat.
Your topic, your intro,
which you already masterfully half did.
Yes,
that's okay. Continuation of the topic. So in the past 2 episodes, we've talked about how to make a selection between the, let's say, desktop or laptop, and then in the last episode, we discussed various, let's say, mechanisms that we could use to decide which laptop to use, and we recommended some of them. So, logically speaking, and actually this was your idea, you recommended or suggested the trifecta of topics. In the continuation of the previous 2 episodes, today we are talking about desktops. Specifically, we're going to go a little bit through the history of the desktops that we used, and we're going to talk about some of the available options nowadays on the market, so that you guys can have a little bit of an easier time finding your own, let's say, preferred components for your desktop computers. So let's roll the intro and let's get the party rolling. Okay, monsieur. What's up?
So, in my usual, now legendary style, I think we are going to start with this one. This is a Atari portfolio.
I had that one.
Yes, I was just planning on buying one. I also had that one.
You should. It's so you.
Yes, I know. But what I wanted to say is that Atari portfolio was a computer from 1989. Mm-hmm. And I think this computer is a good start to when we need to talk about the PCs and the desktops. Because these are the times where the PCs themselves and the Atari portfolio weren't that much different.
Okay.
Because the only thing that you could run on those was DOS. Mm-hmm. CP/M was dead then. You had DOS in its most basic version without the quasi multi-threading and multitasking hasn't arrived yet to those machines. So you could use, you couldn't use something that is going to do more than one thing at once. So Atari was something that was resembling a normal desktop machine. Mm-hmm. And I think the reason why I wanted to mention this is that when we are talking about the machines today, and we are talking about laptops, desktops, and so on, we specifically know the difference. Because there is a huge difference between those 2 types of machines. There is a huge difference in performance. There's a huge difference in first and foremost the way the machine is powered, portability, and so on and so on and so on. Mm-hmm. Back way then, the difference wasn't that big, because the CRTs were the only screens that were available on the desktops. Mm-hmm. Basically, the only thing that you had to do, that you had when you wanted to display something was text. You could theoretically, this is the time when Hercules and CGA graphics came in. But the thing is that what made the thing work was that your machine had a simple task to do. It was just one task. It could be word processing. Mm-hmm. It was usually something connected to the business. Mm-hmm. And all of those were theoretically possible on something like Atari portfolio. Now, let's switch.
Did you have that?
Yes.
at that time.
Yes.
And you didn't consider it to be just a gimmick and utterly useless.
It wasn't that useless because it wasn't that different what you could do on a PC if you were a regular user. It was a gimmick, yes. It had amazing autonomy because it was running on AA batteries, if I remember
Something
correctly.
like that, yes.
Something like that.
So it had some kind of a very weird adapter.
Yes, and it wasn't powered by. You couldn't charge it. You needed to get rechargeable batteries separately, and this one was as close to the desktop as possible, while at the same time being portable and being something that they called at that time. They called it a personal assistant. So this was the time before the different IPEX. PDAs,
Newtons,
pounds,
palms.
newtons, and so on. I think this is practically when the Newton came out, the first Newton, the Apple one.
Okay, two things.
Yes.
First and foremost, this machine, if I remember correctly, was crazy expensive.
Yes.
It was insanely expensive for what it was.
It says right now here that the equivalent price is $940 in yesteryear's money. So something like $1,000 for something that was basically half usable as a computer.
Yeah. The second thing that I distinctly remember about this machine as well is that this was at the time, and you actually touched on that subject by accident, you don't know this about me. At that point in time, I was a serial digital organizer buyer.
I don't need to know this thing about you,
Yeah,
because
but
you
I-
still remained a serial organizer, but you're not buying, you're just trying out things.
Yes, but back then I had probably, in the years prior to this one, I probably bought close to 10 or 15 different types of Casios and whatnot in terms of the digital organizers. So you kind of reminded me of that. I completely forgot about this. I was always, let's say, digital man in a sense. I was heavily into watches and digital assistants like this, and hence the reason why when I started using the laptops many years later, I've never looked back. That's actually a part of the reason that I should have mentioned in the previous episode in a way. That's probably one of the reasons why I'm so heavily into laptops. So that's a very good, let's say, starting point for our discussion, realistically speaking.
Yes, and this was the reason why I got it out, because we didn't plan on this.
No, complete surprise.
So at the same time, I just looked up. There was a Pocket PC, spelled POQET, and this one was $2,000 at that time, while
moly.
portfolio was $399. So this is something like $4,500 in today's money. So basically, Apple MacBook Pro higher end configuration type of money.
I can see that there are a couple of them on eBay for less than 200 euros.
Yes.
Do you really want one?
No, not right now,
Why not?
because we are filming the.
No,
podcast.
not what I said.
We'll talk about it.
Yeah.
We'll talk about, because I have a reason why I didn't buy one. I was this close to clicking on buy now, but I have another idea. I need to work on it, and then we'll sort it out.
Okay.
I'm saving for something that is going to be even more different than what we actually want to do. Okay. Anyways, this was the intro. Now, what should we do about the things that? Let me move. Because he's trying to
Mimic.
make me move in a way that is inconspicuous, and I decided, okay, screw it, let's just move.
And we're going to introduce some kind of, let's say, light signals. We're going to have a screen right there on the wall, and it's going to tell you, move forward, move backward, left, right, something.
What we need to do is an episode on how the studio looks like.
We'll do that in the future.
Because the behind the scenes is amazing when it comes to our studio, since the studio itself is a shoebox size, but it works.
Yes.
Anyways.
It's my shoebox. I love it.
Yes. So yes. Okay. And anyway, let's switch over to the comparable PCs in 1989, because I think that we should be starting from the middle.
Can I? That's okay. Can I just interject with short thing before
Yes.
that? I only had one PC before that,
Okay.
which was Commodore PC-10 XT. So my introduction to the PC world was that computer with two 525-inch drives and, I don't know, 640K memory, the good old days. 20 megabyte hard disk, I think. And I started with MS-DOS 330 and then went to 622 after that. So that was my introduction to PCs. I remember that machine. I actually have it somewhere in the basement or whatnot. It's still working. It was heavy as hell. And I had it with, do you remember those amber screens, the L ones?
Yes.
Because VGA was not a thing and color screens were not a thing yet. A couple of years later, it was an XT. And let's say the biggest joy that I got out of that computer was playing Tetris and Nibbles.
Yes. My first PC was I got it even earlier than that. By stroke of luck, what happened is that the university games were held in Zagreb in 1987.
I was a part of the opening ceremony of that, if
okay.
you remember, on our
Yes.
stadium.
And what I managed to do is that they had XT PCs that were used for data entry for the results. And they were using them as the workstations. And after the event, I got one of those.
You lucky man.
Yes, it
because
was
the amount of money that
Yes,
Commodore
I know,
cost,
I know,
it was a yearly salary or something like that.
yes, and the other thing was that this PC was something that I honestly haven't seen since, because it is called a Hero. It was Japanese or
I remember that.
yes, and the other thing was that it was an XT, and it was completely modular. By modular, I mean that you had a separate case that is holding the power supply. Then you had a separate case for the disks, separate case for the CPU, separate case for the memory, and separate case for the floppies. And then you could connect the modules to themselves. No, this was one of the models, but this was not the actual PC that we are talking about. The thing about this thing was that it was, as an introduction to PC, it looked amazing because it was mimicking the mainframes of that era. You had a separate disks in a separate case that you could open and so on. So this was a thing that you could use. The configuration that we got was the most basic one, so no hard disk, just a double floppy, because this is usually
This was the thing.
This was the thing back way then. One floppy was used for the boot procedure and to get the system running, and the other one was used to store the data or
Applications,
whatever you wanted to do on a 360K floppy. That was the normal back way then. I think that even the drives back way then were single-sided, if I'm not correct.
Yes, they were. And the hard disks were, bolted to the controller. And they were half a meter long. You remember those days?
Yes.
That's
And
what
the
it
other
was.
thing was that the drives were something that you could actually, and I had a friend that did this. The drives were so big that you could actually open one and clean it, and then close it up, and then it would get working again.
Yep.
So this was a different era when it comes to electronics.
Yes.
Almost everything was discrete. The amount of power required just to power this thing up was enormous.
Yeah.
But it was a fun machine to start with.
It was, just like my Commodore. Same thing.
I didn't have the amber screen. I have the green screen with the first one. And the first game that I got was Alley Cat by IBM.
I actually remember that.
That game was legendary. You can still play it, but the problem is that the game itself was directly, the speed of the game was directly related to the clock speed, because what they did is
Remember? Control DS.
Yes. So what they did was that since the processors were basically the single processor 8088 that was the standard way back then, you could expect the speed that is going to be stable, and you expect that the speed is going to be a standard. So they were just doing everything by the clock. And this created a big problem because as soon as the new processors came to the market, the game was completely unplayable because it was running so quickly that you couldn't do it anything.
Absolutely correct. I remember those days very well. Actually, to that point, the games that I played on this one,
Yes.
Tetris, for example, if I started on the lowest speed, which I started with at first, it was playable. Then it took me quite a while to get a hang of the game. Then I switched because you had keyboard combinations to speed up the processor, slow it down, 3 of them. The fastest one is I think 9.54 megahertz or something like that. At the beginning of my journey with PCs, that was already unplayably fast. And it was actually something that was visible in other games too.
Yes.
And if I took the same game to 286, my friend got one a couple of years afterwards. It was Formula 1 unplayable. It was super unplayable.
You can actually try the LA Cat itself is abandonware, so you can try it. If you run it in an emulator today, what you're going to end up with is going to be a blip on the screen.
Yeah.
Because it is going to end itself immediately, basically.
And when I think about those first computers, actually, and I was actually thinking about this today before the episode, and I was trying to find some pictures of these old PCs that I used to have, and there is a webpage with Commodore images, which I'm actually displaying right now. This is also something that was obviously hard-coded in my brain. You can see it. It was a computer with many ports and many options. And this is something that's going to be a reoccurring theme, just like in the episode of the laptops.
And I think this may be the reason why you are so heavily into ports and basically trying to rate a computer, grade a computer based on the number of ports it has.
It's about expandability, but yes.
Yes. So now we came to the somewhere around the end of the 80s, beginning of the 90s.
Yeah.
And what I got, I had a good friend of mine back then, who had a 286 machine.
Same.
And the thing that I still remember and that I sorely miss is the sound of the Seagate 225 MFM drive. Because it had a soft...
Click?
No, it wasn't a click. It was different sounds because the speed of the head, when the head was moving...
Oh, I remember.
...was different based on what the head was doing. So the frequency of the sound it made was different.
Yeah.
And it made a soft sound that you actually can hear. There are some videos simply because the STA225 was so peculiar when it comes to the sound it made. It was an extremely slow drive, but it was a hard drive. So suddenly you could actually have a game on drive. You didn't need to boot from the diskette or floppy. And suddenly you could do something. Suddenly you could also this one had a Hercules card, so you had some sort of kind of graphics. It was obviously a 3-color, so two intensities and one bit color, so either on, off, or brighter on. And the thing was that the things that you could play on those were really good games.
Yeah.
I know that back way then we had Test Drive.
Yeah.
You could play games that were actually resembling something. There was even a flight simulator available for it because the flight simulator first one came for the 286.
Yeah.
And then it got upgraded when 386 came in, and the more memory became possible, because 286 had basically two big problems. One was that it wasn't 32-bit; it was 16-bit only, and the other thing was that it wasn't available. It wasn't able to address anything other than 640K, or it was able to address megabyte of RAM, but it needed to do tricks. So the paging and everything else.
Yeah. I remember 3 things about the 286 generation. Again, I never had one. This was something that my friend had. We used to play it a lot. I remember the CGI graphics that it had. I remember also 2 games one of them was basketball, and one of them was hockey. A Canadian style hockey of the 80s in which you could slug everybody on the court and have fights and whatnot. Those are the only three things that I remember about that computer. I never had a 286 or a 386. But at the same time, while I was waiting for some kind of future upgrade, because this is the time when I went from primary to secondary school. You're a couple of years older than me, so it happened a little bit earlier for you, or let's say later in the let's say education part of your life. While that was happening, I was heavily into the magazines of the year, just like you. But most of my time back then, I actually did not play a PC, although I had XT all the way to until I started college. The first new computer I got after that was at the end of first year of college, which was 486. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. Most of the games that I played back since my so first year high school till fourth one was actually C64 at my friend's house, and the 286 at my other friend's house.
I had way back then. I had at home. I had that XT. Then we got rid of it because it was basically a loaner. Since it was something that was, as I said, it was a machine that was bought and used on the university games. So we had to get it back. And then I was using the ZX Spectrum at home, and I wasn't that interested in games back by then.
I was
for different reasons. When I was doing games in the elementary school, we more or less went to somebody's house and then played games
or
there.
Luna Park.
Or no, I wasn't. I
was super into that.
No. We were visiting each other, and know that a couple of times we even organized birthdays around playing games on the. We brought two Spectrums, and I had a friend of mine who had tabletop soccer. So some of the guys were playing soccer, some of the guys were just playing.
It was fun for everybody.
Yes.
I wasn't that. I don't want to say I was that lucky. It didn't happen like that to me because there were only three of us in primary school who had computers. I had the Amstrad thingy. My best friend had C64, and my other friend had Atari. So we were completely incompatible in terms of the playing of the games and everything else. So we couldn't exchange them. It was only way later that everybody standardized on PCs and everything was cool. But we used to play those, small video games that you could buy in the store as well, with one video game only.
And then after that I got my 386, and I got it at the same time the most people got Amigas. So the games
my other friend, much younger than me, who I play with today in the band, he had Amiga.
So Amigas were much more gamer friendly back then because they had color, they had a sound.
Yeah.
The sound was something that you didn't have on a PC, or you could have sound on your PC, but it was enormously expensive. No, it was enormously expensive. You could buy a card. You could also have graphics. You had Targa graphics. The cards. I have one of those with the video memory that was able to actually do titling, and it was able to process regular video signal. But this was so expensive and so out of the league of anybody for a home computer that was completely just
outlier.
I got it 20 years after it went out, so it was basically when it became obsolete. But what I had to do then is I started to learn to code because I had a PC, and this was unfortunate since almost none of the games came for the PC. So I started to do since I was in mathematical gymnasium. Way back then when it wasn't a gymnasium yet, we were doing coding in Pascal, and since I was lucky enough to have a PC at home, I was able to do some Pascal. I was doing some C. Because Turbo Pascal was the thing to do way back then. And
I remember my brother also went to the same school. He is a little bit older than you are, though. He used Pascal and Fortran.
Yes. I didn't do Fortran because for some reason or the other I didn't like Fortran.
Okay.
Fortran was completely, I wouldn't say alien to me, but it wasn't the way I thought. The Pascal was much more natural to me and much more something that I realized, that I could understand from the get-go.
I think that today you would probably want to change that and go other way around because Fortran is super popular still. Heavily used.
If I wanted to start with something, I know that right now I would probably start with Python.
No,
Because
I mean from the old days.
yes, from the older days. But what I would do probably the way I think today, I think that my way of thinking hasn't changed too much. So probably the thing that I would do today would be Python.
Okay.
Because Pascal was much more flexible when it comes to different things. And the other thing is that if you remember way back then, there were different. I had exactly the same case for my PC. So if you remember back then, this was the time when you could get access to Pascal libraries on disk. So some of the magazines actually provided you with the floppy, and there were already pre-made Pascal examples and Pascal programs that you could reuse.
Especially the foreign ones.
Yes. So I was buying, I don't know which one.
I know that there were quite a few of them in Bytes.
I don't know which one, which was the magazine I actually bought. There was a foreign one. Okay, I got the local ones that were available back then. So the Racionari, Moy Micro,
Svet Computer,
Galaxy, and so on. And these were normal things. And not only these are normal things, these are so normal that the nice lady at the shop that was dealing the newspaper stand, she actually had magazines prepared for me. So she knew that I'm going to get them
every single month.
And she was actually saving them because the numbers that they got at the newspaper stand wasn't so big, probably a couple of copies. So she was waiting for me with my copy because I wanted to buy a magazine every week. And this was when I got my 486 after this. My 486 I got it somewhere in the late 1991. And the thing that I got with it, I remember it distinctly because...
That seems very early.
I remember the thing was that, it was the beginning of 1992, but I think it was late 1991, because it was immediately before the war started. And the reason why I remember this was that my case that looked exactly like this was actually made in Bosnia.
Okay.
There was a Bosnian factory that made cases for the German market in Žepče. And what they did was I got one of those. I don't know from where. My father was in charge of buying the computer. I know that the computer was insanely expensive, but he realized that I'm going to do it, and he decided that he's going to buy me a computer. And I was extremely satisfied with this one because the configuration I got.
Generation.
No, the configuration I got was strange because it had a SCSI controller. I had a SCSI disk. I had a modem. It was a 2400
28.
2400 bytes bouts. Basically the second slowest one that you could buy.
Yeah.
And then I got connected to first BBS.
And that's where your future went through the window.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. Because what I did, I connected to the BBSs, and then what happened is that I realized that they were ways to connect to the internet. The internet way back then was something like nobody would use it probably today if it were back by then. The thing that you could use was IRC. The thing that you could use was Archie. Gopher. News and FTP.
FTP, yeah.
Anonymous FTP was the thing that to use.
Yes.
But if you remember way back then, the internet connection for the entire Croatia was something like
44, something like that.
I think it was 9600 or double models for 9600. So basically, what you had to do is I got my immediately I got my account on the public internet server, and then when it was possible.
Jagor?
Jagor. No, before that it was called Srcap.
Yeah.
So the VMS one. And the problem was that the thing itself was, when it came to communicate with the outside internet, was so slow that you had to use the AT command just to schedule the download of things that you wanted to compile.
Yeah.
So I remember that when something was over 10 kilobytes, you needed to wait.
And wait.
And wait. The waiting time was in hours. So what you did was you scheduled what you wanted to do. You scheduled it to happen during the night, and then in the morning you came back and saw what was happening.
For me, the story is quite a bit different. So I was, compared to your description, I was quite a late boomer, because I got my DX4, I think it was 120 by IBM, when I came to, this was the computer that I mentioned, so I think second part of the first year of college. And this is the computer that I then bought the US Robotics modem for and whatnot. This was my introduction to internet. Yours was a little bit earlier, obviously. And this computer was not the SCSI-based one as you had. That came a little bit later for me, but it's going to be a reoccurring theme that you're going to probably diss me for and make jokes about it, which is completely fine. I'm looking forward to it. That computer was my first computer after the XT. My dad bought that one for me. This was, I mean, you got yours, you were still high school. I was already in college when I got the new one. I got through whole secondary school or high school with it, and I remember printing the insane amount of stuff on my dot matrix printer for Latin language sayings and whatnot in second year of high school and whatnot. But after that, I got actually first thing that I got after my XT was the LaserJet 4L, which you still owe me. And after that, I got the computer, which was a weird combination, but still. I had the DX4 for actually quite a short time, because something big was looming on the horizon and already happened, which was called Pentium. I actually, this was my introduction to internet and BBSs as well. This was 1995 for me. So one of the colleagues from the group that I was in college had his own. It was a pirate BBS run by PC Board, if you remember that piece of software, which was super popular for BBSers.
It still exists. You can run
I know.
BBS
I checked a couple of months ago. I know that it still does.
There is in a BBS. I will give you the. There is a local BBS here in Croatia that is running PC Board.
Yeah. Are there people still on it or?
Yes.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
And it's amazingly enough, it has the same
interface menu.
No, the same user base from the late 1990s.
I'm liking it even more
because the guy who was running a BBS in Rijeka found the backups of the BBS of some old floppies, and a couple of years ago he put up BBS online. He upgraded it to a PC board that is able to connect to the internet right now. So you can actually connect there and get the packages for the email. You can, I think you can talk to people on Fido, because Fido still exists.
I remember, yeah, FidoNet.
FidoNet still exists.
Really?
Yes.
Haven't checked that in more than 20 years.
Or 30. And anyway, so they exist. So you can do the old style BBS thing. The only problem is that it's complicated to get the QWK packages enabled reader, because I think there is only one that is right now able to run on the Windows.
Okay. So you commented on the case that I'm showing right now, which is fun in a way because practically everybody had that case.
Yes.
Or something like that. This was not the era of highly customizable, LED-driven, RGB-driven or something computer cases. It was the era of a generic case which had a small display, and that display was used if you turn on the turbo button. And
which nobody turned off.
Nobody ever turned off in the history of mankind, only to check whether or not the display works, and you left it turned on and everything is good.
And the thing that they all had was the relic of the business era. They had the key.
Yes.
They had the key so you could lock the keyboard.
Yes.
Mechanically.
Yes.
Basically disconnecting the connector for the keyboard.
Yeah, I had that. So that DX4 was with me for something like 6 months. And the guy that used to run the BBS already had a Pentium 90. And me being a little bit of a spoiled brat back then, and a little bit, let's say, about technology, I complained about how can he have, whatever. And my father got me a way better machine a year after that, which was based around the beast called Pentium 2.
Oh, yes.
This was the latest gen that you could buy in Croatia, at least back then. It was the 266 megahertz version of it, slot 1. One of our favorite sockets that ever existed in the history of computers. And this is actually the era of, so I failed the first year, I re-signed again. This is roughly the time when I started doing some odd jobs. I started doing Linux administration little by little. I used to do a lot of stuff for student service, just like you did. Many of us did. I started doing some stuff for actually some foreign companies as well. Some paperwork, some word processing, some translations, whatnot, everything involving computer. So after a while, I was actually able to kind of like save a heck of a lot of money from those odd jobs that I did. And I upgraded that computer to a computer that you are kind of familiar because we discussed it in private months and months ago. And this was my first SCSI computer. So I had the Ultraplex reader, Biplexter, the writer, Biplexter. Then afterwards, the first controller that I had was Adaptex 1542. Then I went to a more expensive one, which was 2940W. Then I went to the more expensive version, which was U2W as well. And I had also the external one, and I talked to you about this scanner as well,
yes,
which flatbed scanner 4C Scanjet. I still have it in my basement. It still works to this very day. This is where my obsession, kind of, let's call it for what it is, obsession for computer hardware started. Because I was able to save, I mean, you can see from the list, the scanner was something that my dad bought me. But everything else that you heard, and on top of that, many discs and sound blasters and whatnot, and SCSI cables, which were always very expensive. And I had external cases for all of those things. I was able to save from these odd jobs, and I was saving for months for them, and actually probably years as well, before I bought all of those. And this is also a time when I was introduced to the best friend in terms of the graphics cards that I had back then, which was the ATI All-in-One series of cards.
Yes.
I had 4 different ones. First one I bought, second one I bought, third one I bought, fourth one I actually got because I was already in the computer magazine, so I got it after the review. I spent an enormous amount of money on those cards because, as I'm sure you know, those were the most expensive cards that you could buy. At first and second generation, I mean. They were like 300 euros in today's money in 1996.
Yes, my first card was a VGA card. I think it was 3D whatever.
3DFX?
3DFX probably.
TNT something.
Yes, but no, sorry, it was a VGA card. It wasn't 3D capable.
Oh, okay.
And then I got a lender. My friend lent me because he had 2 of those for some reason or the other. The first pass through the Voodoo pass-through card, and this was something that was completely amazing because this was the first card that enabled you to actually have real-time 3D that made sense. Because on the old VGA cards, for example, we were running, because everything was available, we were running Autodesk CAD, and it took it, I don't know, 12 minutes to render something on the screen.
And but before that, it took it 45 minutes to render.
Yes, so we were talking basically an afternoon to just see something on the screen. And then suddenly 3D became available.
Yeah.
And I must admit that I had a couple of friends who were heavily into hardware, and I didn't buy my own video cards because I didn't see the reasoning behind it. I wasn't the one who was playing too much. What I did was I liked to connect to the BBSs. I was communicating with people. I was doing emails back then. And I wasn't that interested in having a video card at home. And then when I started working in magazines, suddenly I got a decent machine at home. But since everything was available in the magazine itself, and
Yeah.
I was spending a lot of time there, I just didn't upgrade my computer at home.
Yeah, let's leave the history of us starting in the magazines for a little bit later. Obviously, so back then I was the ATI guy, definitely. I had 4 of those cards. One was more expensive than the other, and back way then that was super expensive. Obviously, you don't buy these cards for necessarily for performance in 3D gaming, although they were quite decent in that. They were multimedia cards that you could hook up to TV. You had the capability to have the output on a different TV for it. It had piece of software that could real time basically record MPEG-2 streams from a TV. You
Yes.
could schedule it. It worked beautifully. Some of the shows that I used to watch on some Slovenian channels like Channel A and whatnot were very popular back then. So I spent most of the college actually working with them, and a couple of years after, at least a year after that. So that's a long 7 or 8 year period for 3 of those all-in-wonder cards, and then I started working in a magazine. And the only constant that remained all the way through college was the all-in-wonder card and the SCSI things, which I bought more and more of. I mean, the latest generations of SCSIs could address 15 devices, 14 if you discount the controller and some things. I had it almost full, internal and external. I spent gazillion, amounts of kunas for all of that. I enjoyed that very much. But until I got into the IT journalist, editor / magazine business, I did not upgrade my computer all that much. A lot of people here locally were buying hardware from the same smuggler guy that used to live around
Yes.
some Zagrebačka petlja, whatever, doesn't really matter. And this was around time when I built actually my like a side computer, because I had some spare parts and disks and whatnot, and I had old SCSI controllers which I removed because I changed 3 different adapters. I built my first dual CPU thingy, so regular stuff, Asus PWDs with those slot 1 modified Celerons 300.
Yes, I remember those.
Yeah, upgraded, overdriven to 450, 66 to 100 megahertz bus, whatnot. But I was just playing with that computer on the side. This was way back then when I had 2 computers, and that was something that became a topic for me for basically all time after that. I always have multiple computers just like you do. But it was only when I got into the business of computer magazines that I actually started upgrading to newer generations of computers. I had that Clomet, and I had this dual CPU thing. So for 5 or 6 years, I did not replace anything apart from the Adaptec and 3 different all-in-one cards, because I didn't need anything.
The same thing for me, but what I did in the meantime was that I switched from using DOS, and I was extremely late to Windows.
I was very early to Windows, something like that.
No, to be okay. Let's make a distinction there. I was early to implement Windows 3.11, but then when Windows 95 came in, and you had to switch to a different kernel. So basically, when the kernel became a thing, and you couldn't just use Windows 95 from DOS, it was I was late in switching. I switched something like in 1996 or 1997. I almost waited for the Windows 98 before I switched, and at the same time in the 93 and 94 I installed Linux. So I had Slackware running on the PC. And this was way back then when you had to have dual boot, because there were no other options available to you at all.
Yeah.
So you had to be extremely careful not to delete the primary partition.
Made it work perfectly.
Yes, you needed to
multiple times.
You needed to make sure that you're not going to break your primary partition. Then you had to install the Linux. You had those stupid limitations that the booting parts had to be the first 2 gigabytes of the disk, and so on and so on and so on. So many little things that you needed to take care of. And the thing is that I wasn't experimenting with hardware that much. I was experimenting much more with software because I was interested to see what is going to happen and what is happening. So I stopped buying hardware because I didn't need to.
Okay.
The only thing that I wanted to buy and what I bought were discs.
Yeah, so I obviously went in a completely opposite direction of that. I actually had my first laptop back then. My dad got me a ASTS Sentia, one of the models. He bought me a network card for it, PCMCIA. You do remember how crazily expensive those things were back
Yes.
in 90s. It was like 2 average monthly salaries or something like that for our region.
But
at
even
least.
PCMCA cards were something that first they were almost unobtainable.
Yeah.
And then when you got one, the amount of money you had to pay for a PCMCI card was something like 4 times the equivalent that you could get for a desktop PC.
And actually, I got that on our local fair in our fairground here. We currently have one running in Zagreb as well at the time of filming this. And I had a special request for the network card for the PCMCI. It had to work with Linux as well. So it was much more difficult to find one. I was lucky on one of the stands, they had one. And I made the guy sell it to me, although he didn't want to.
When I was doing the Linux thing was that my first contacts with Linux was that since I was installing Slackware, and Slackware
So
had
1995, by the way. This was 1995 that I'm
This
talking about.
93?
Yeah, for me.
So I was installing Slackware, and Slackware had a problem. The Slackware way back then was installed from floppies.
Yes.
I had 56 of those. They were.
I think version 1.0 was 40 floppies, if I remember correctly.
I remember they had everything, including the extended floppies, and
A,
they had
A,
floppy.
D.
Yes, they had floppy sets. My X floppy set, so the floppy set that was installing the X server, was broken. So I wasn't able to even install graphical user interface. I had to go into the terminal because I had to wait to get the floppy from the guy who I got the Linux from. And the problem is that his floppy was bad. So I was copying from a bad floppy. This is the reason why my packages were broken. And my X just wouldn't install. So what I had to do is I had to wait probably a couple of weeks because I could before I could grab the packages. And way back then, when you wanted to install Linux, you were more or less on your own.
Yeah, no documentation. No
Documentation
procedure.
was whatever was available, and this was abysmally bad. And the other thing was that if you wanted to connect to the internet using Linux, using Slip and dial-up,
DIP.
the only thing that you could do was actually call somebody in the university computer center. And then there was a guy there who knew how to do it. So you actually had to go step by step talking to him because there was no user support. There was just a guy who actually knew what he was talking about, who was trying to guide you, and you had absolutely no idea what you're doing.
Yes.
And then he was trying to guide you through installing something, and the modems themselves were for German market, so we had to reprogram those. They had the redial problems that were popular way back then.
They had loops of weirdness.
Yes, the loops of weirdness. I'll just quickly note that way back then, Germany decided that you are not allowed to redial more than 3 times in a minute, I think, or so, or something like this, because this is overburdening the telephone network.
Pulse dialing.
So you had to wait for the pulse dial. So this is the first thing, and the second thing was that you weren't able to directly dial as soon as possible. You had to wait. So it was a different thing. But let's get back to desktops, because right now we are doing the origin story of the supervillain, although the supervillain. Now we want to go back to the desktops. Way back then, the desktops were more or less pretty similar to each other.
Very much so.
You had a couple, if the current processor line for the couple of chipsets, BX, FX, and GX, for example.
BX, one of the best chipsets ever made.
Yes. The processors market was much more different because you had AMD, you had Intel,
Cyrix.
and you had Cyrix. Cyrix was always, and you had VIA.
Transmeta.
Okay. Yes, but it was called VIA back then.
Yeah.
So you had different processors, They were trying different things. So, for example, Intel tried creating the Celeron that was in slot 1. So basically it was mounted in different way than the other processors for different reasons. One was the cooling, the other was patent reason, because they were trying to create a different motherboard. Motherboards themselves were expensive.
Super expensive, yes.
The power supplies were expensive.
Yeah.
Or to be simply said, everything was expensive.
Yeah.
Even the cases.
Yeah.
Because the cases were made out of actual steel.
Aluminum and steel, yeah. Steel, actually, back then, yes.
Okay, but if you got, for example, if you got an Olivetti did the plastic cases, and then they had an internal structure made out of aluminum that was there just for the EMF shielding, but it wasn't meant to be something that was holding the thing together. So people were experimenting. When I mentioned Olivetti, there were different manufacturers that don't exist anymore now.
Yeah.
And you could buy a PC. If you want to buy a PC, probably you could buy an IBM.
Yeah.
They were prohibitively expensive.
The DX4 that I talked about was original IBM.
Yeah, so they were prohibitively expensive.
Yeah, this is insane.
It was insane. They had their own standards because they were still trying to establish dominance by destandardizing PC, because they realized that the Pandora's box has been opened.
Yeah,
and they were losing the market share, and they were pretty much into not losing the market share, so they introduced PS2 and the microchannel structure. They were trying to do different styles of floppies, different styles of controllers, and so on.
Yeah.
They were trying to change the connectors. They
the
were
network and whatnot. Yeah,
yes,
it was a lot of stuff.
They were doing whatever they could to destandardize the PC. But way back then, the PC itself was first pretty standardized, and the other thing was that the availability of different options wasn't that great.
Yeah, unobtainium.
Not only this, but nobody was creating.
Even trying, yeah.
Yes, you had the network card, but you had a couple of network cards. That was it.
Yeah, and a 2000
and yes, that
was it.
Yes, that was it. The thing was that when somebody made a card that worked, everybody just created that card, or you just got that card. That was it. There weren't so many options as there are now.
Yeah, agreed.
And this was the thing that was driving the PC more or less for 20 years.
Yes.
And the problem was that people don't understand right now that I think it was middle of the 2000s when the actual market became something that you could consider a divergent market. Suddenly, a case that wasn't beige became a thing. First, people were decorating their own cases.
Yeah. Much more elaborate coolers.
Yes.
Started appearing on the market.
Yes. Water cooling became a thing.
Chillers.
I bought a Ford Fiesta oil cooler, and then got it connected to the first block. You could buy CPU cooling blocks that were more or less machined in a shop, and then you had to connect your own set of things. I still have that cooler at home.
I have one of those water coolers at home as well.
Yes,
Still
but
works.
it wasn't from the Ford Fiesta.
Yeah, no.
The other thing was that you could decorate your. So you were inclined to decorate your case. Right now, if I told you that I want you to take your case to a local auto body shop and get it painted in a different color, you would say that I would be insane.
Yeah,
but
clinically.
we did it.
Yeah.
I had a bright red case because a friend of mine, he was heavily into modding cases. So what he was doing is he was creating plexi windows into cases. He was painting cases and so on. So he created a mod case for us, and it was fiery red. When it cost some insane amount of money because you had it, he had it thermo painted with a special paint at the local body shop, but it was the fun thing to do because there weren't that many things that you could do. You couldn't buy a faster processor. You had three different speeds on the market. That was it. You couldn't buy more memory because memory was extremely expensive. So what you could do, you could change the color of your case.
Yeah. Which brings us basically to around the era when both of us were in the, let's say, publishing industry. I started in 1997 with a friend of ours. Later on, I just did, 10, 15 different articles for the Linux column. You started working with them as well. Later on, it became a permanent business. And for the next, 10 plus years, you were the editor as well there.
I started in 1999 and I finished. I remember that when I finished, I had 17 years behind me.
Yeah.
And I think 4 of those I wasn't an editor.
Yeah, I think something like 12 years.
For the most part of it, I was an editor either of that magazine or another magazine that was dealing with mobile phones.
Yeah, my story was just a little bit different. So I never did the overall magazine editing business. I was just the editor of the hardware part, which consisted of, which basically made the most of the magazine, to be quite honest. Afterwards, I started with my own website, and there I was the editor-in-chief. But that was a little bit later. But that's less of a point. The point that I wanted to make is this: until that time, when we became those people, basically, I don't think we changed our computers all that much. It was then when the floodgates of hardware started opening towards us, which led, at least in my case, I don't know necessarily the details of your case. So I kind of have an idea of how that went. But when the floodgates of that hardware started opening in 2004 for me, when I started, after I started, 6 months after I started working in the magazine, that was a completely different story. For the next, I think until 2010 or 2011, I basically did not have a permanent computer because I changed the motherboard every 2 weeks, CPUs every month, graphic cards every 2 or 3 or 4 months, or maybe a little bit more, and everything else, because they were coming in faster than I could actually put them to good use. That was my story. And I cannot even begin to tell you the amount of MSI, Gigabyte, EVGA motherboards, Epoch motherboards, DFI LAN party motherboards when they were still alive.
3D
Most
Club.
of them. Yeah, Club 3D is still alive. Hello, Paul. One of the owners. I cannot even begin to tell you the amount of those that I tried, in which they didn't want to ship it back because it was too much of a cost. So they usually left it with us. I actually still have a Gigabyte provided X58 motherboard with Intel CPU. That's actually the computer that's silver case in our office. It is unbreakable. So those days were actually, it was a string of, after you mentioned the BX chipset. After that, Intel had a string of fantastic chipsets. 865, 875, 965, 975, X38, X48, and X58. Those like a span of, let's say, 10 years of chipsets, one was better than the other. Never had a complaint about it.
Yes, but there is one thing I just checked.
When way back then, NVIDIA did chipsets as well, Enforces.
Yes.
I still have a couple of motherboards, Enforce, SLI, whatnot, EVGA ones with water cooling, still working to this very day.
And this was the time when VIA also did the
KTs.
they did the APS and they did the low power motherboards for specific purposes, but those were also amazing machines. But I checked, and the thing is that I think that the reasoning behind why we didn't upgrade as often before we became somebody who was doing this basically professionally was that you couldn't upgrade because you didn't have the processor to upgrade them from.
Yeah, it was impossible to get.
No, not only this. The thing is that I checked, the Pentium 3 was released in the 1999.
Yeah.
And this was the first processor. Before that, Pentium 1, Pentium 2, you could release, but you only had 486, Pentium 1, Pentium 2, that was it. Then the Celeron came out with the Pentium 3.
It was very popular here.
It was extremely popular because it was cheap.
Much cheaper.
But this was the breaking point when you actually had the processor every year, a new processor that you could upgrade on. And the other thing was the Pentium 3 was the Pentium Pro came in. In 1995
I had one of those
and 1996. But the thing is that this was the time when Intel was trying to push for 1 point something gigahertz, because they were trying to push the single core processing above the gigahertz mark, because AMD was doing it. And the thing what that happened was that this was the time, if you remember, way back then, Pentium 3 had a problem on 133 speed. There was a failed attempt at a processor that was the first processor that had problems, specifically in Linux, specifically with build systems, because it was unable to build. It had a hardware error that made it unable to build some software.
I had Pentium 3 only on my laptop, one of the Dell that I mentioned.
And this was the first thing that Pentium did when it came to something different, because this was the 2000 was the year that the speed step was introduced.
Yeah.
And this was a big thing.
Yes.
And the reason why I'm mentioning this is that up until that point, you more or less couldn't upgrade your computer without changing it in its entirety. You had to change the processor,
motherboard.
But then you had to change the motherboard, then you had to change the memory, and usually...
Memory was a little bit longer lasting, but generally speaking, you are correct.
Yes, because you didn't want to have the memory that's going to be much slower than the processor that you were getting, because the difference in speed between the generations of the processor were enormous.
Yes.
And the other thing was that
except for Pentium 4, which was in many cases slower than Pentium 3.
Okay, right now Intel did it again with the 14th generation compared to the 13th generation, so nothing had changed. But on that part, the thing that also changed was that the thing that you like the most, so the periphery, completely changed.
Yes.
Parallel ports went out of business.
Serial ports.
Serial ports are still available on most of the motherboards.
Not on laptops though.
Yes, not on laptops, but on most motherboards right now, you have a serial port.
You still have to buy a header for it, but you're correct.
Or some of those, because I was completely surprised when I got the motherboard for the AMD's Threadripper Pro, and I got an actual header for the COM port.
Well done,
and
AMD.
that was
last year, 2 years ago.
Last year.
Okay.
But the thing was that I actually opened the case, the box for the motherboard. I saw the header, and first I thought,
what the hell is that?
No, did I make a mistake? what? And then I realized.
Did you buy an ancient motherboard?
Yes, but then I realized that the thing what they are doing is that they have a console port. And the console port is the COM port.
Of course.
So they have an actual DB9 console port that is available on the motherboard.
Which seems completely reasonable.
But in the 2000s, we changed from first the connector for the keyboard changed.
Yes.
From the PS2 to
USB.
From the DIN to PS2, then from PS2 to USB.
Yeah.
We still have combined PS2 connectors for the
to this very day.
The graphic card connectors changed numerous times.
Yeah.
So you had different VGA connectors. Then you have had HDMIs.
DVI. First DVI.
DVI. Number of DVIs.
DVI. Digital analog.
Digital analog.
Double link or dual link.
Dual link and so on. So this changed. Parallel port went out of business. Firewire came and went.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yes. So what else did we got?
RDA went out of business. COM port 2 went out of business. 25-pin one.
Yes. Some of the boards had composite out.
Actually, my Commodore PC-10 had composite out, believe it or not.
Yes.
Centronics ports for printers went out as well.
Yes, because the printers went to a USB.
Yeah.
But this is purely for the reasons of speed.
Yeah.
Since the rendering was now done in Windows, and they had to create another controller, because the only reason why the controller itself was there to get the data across, and it would be extremely slow to push the information through it. Also, the networks became a thing. So the network cards suddenly appeared on the motherboards themselves without you needing to buy a different card.
It took enormous amount of years for that to become a standard.
Yes, for some reason eSATA ports came and went on the motherboards.
I still find them to be useful.
They're useful, but they came and went.
Yeah.
They appeared and then they disappeared from new motherboards for no particular reason.
I still have cases that have them and use them frequently.
No, I think they're fine.
Yeah.
What I miss today is the USB-C ports because they are so shy to appear on the motherboards.
Oh, well,
I don't know why.
you mean on the cases as well?
Yes.
Cases is worse.
Yes, but cases I can understand. But I cannot understand the motherboards because the motherboards can benefit from the USB-C connector since it's smaller, easier to implement, much better hardware-wise, and so on and so on. So I don't understand why they're not in motherboards. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Cases are actually a very important topic.
Yes, cases are important topic, and
Still to this very day.
And I think that we should dedicate an episode to the cases.
I think we should absolutely do that. And not only that, I tested and posted articles and did publishing for, in terms of the cases and whatnot, I don't know how many. Because the guys who used to work at Cooler Master, you know who you are. I know that you are listening to our podcast, you too. They sent me a whole palette of their cases and they repeated that every single freaking year. All of the Cosmos cases and whatnot. I actually gave quite a few of them away. But this goes actually to the point of the story from my perspective. Because when I started working in Computer Magazine, this was the introduction to, actually reintroduction to a big tower case for me. I never, ever had a mid-tower desktop or whatever case after that. This plays directly into the story.
Yes, no. I didn't go below the mid-tower case.
I always had only big towers. Only big towers ever, like after that, especially because of the Cosmoses, which are the most perfect cases ever made. And I had like 5 or 6 of them, still have a couple. But everything I did afterwards, you know, when you do that thing, when you're, for example, making a sandwich and you have generic components that you're putting, when I try to assemble a new computer, okay, EATX case, the big one, and then I start with everything else, always. Because I know me, you know me as well, because I'm I want to upgrade this to the max type of man. I always need to have the big towers because I always fill them to the brink. And this started actually with all-in-wonders. Actually, before that, it started with SCSI. We used to have machines with multiple SCSI controllers for all the crap that I had on them. And it's just continued to this very day because, again, when we were discussing the laptops, it is the same principle. I was always the one computer type of guy for vast majority of the use cases. And when I say one laptop, one desktop type of guy. But I wanted both of them to be able to do basically everything. That's where my flaw is.
Okay.
And big tower is, generically speaking, a flaw all in itself.
Yes.
For most of the people.
Yes, but I must say that right now, I think that the best case right now is the Fractal, probably. R6, R5, R6, R7. Without.
I like Be Quiet a lot as well.
But okay, but I like fractals for different reasons. And I must say that all the cases that I have are big towers.
Yeah.
Simply because I like the ability to put whatever I can in the case itself. And the biggest thing right now is that almost none of the cases that I have are capable of supporting newer NVIDIAs and newer AMD cards. No, it's not the height. The problem is the
depth.
The depth.
And even the clearance space to the bottom of the case can be a problem as well. And it is in a lot of cases. I had very recent experience with this in my Be Quiet case with Z790 motherboard.
I would say this close to getting the grinder out and solving the problem with the AMD card. Not in the case. Mm-hmm. I was planning on
doing that to the card. Yeah.
Because the case has to stay intact.
There's a simple solution to the problem.
Which one?
Water cooling. Usually it's lower profile.
But the lower profile, yes, but not the depth of the card.
Yeah, I know.
And this is the problem. The problem is that you usually don't have enough space because in modern cases, usually you have the space for the disks in the front, and the space is usually filled from the front. So you don't have enough space. Okay, on most of the fractals, the discs themselves are slotted from the sides, but still you don't have enough space in the front to enable you to hold the full width card. Having said that, let's talk about the cards on the desktops.
Cards?
Because this is the thing that
Super important.
that was super important.
Yeah.
Because when you are buying a desktop, you are buying it because of the compatibility and the flexibility of upgrades.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable assumption.
So let's start first with the things that we take for granted. Graphics card. The graphic card was something that you started from, and this is probably the first expansion that was a thing that you could upgrade without upgrading the rest of the computer.
Yes.
You went from monochrome MDA card to Hercules. You could buy CGA, EGA, VGA. Nobody reasonable would buy a CGA card for different
unless
reasons.
it was already built in.
Yes, because CGA was... I don't know. Okay, I realize the reasoning behind it, but still I don't understand why somebody would buy a CGA, actual CGA card.
It is what it is.
Then you had VGA. After VGA, then
SVGA?
Then SVGA and VGA ISA, the ISA slot, VESA ISA slot. So
VLB.
the higher bandwidth slot that enabled faster cards, and then the rest of the cards that are basically, we are still calling them VGA, but I don't know if are we calling the 4080 a VGA card.
I don't know. I would call it a tank.
I would call it the warmer, but or a heater. But the thing is that the cards themselves were something that was always upgradable, and you had zillions of models through the years.
You still do.
The second thing that was upgradable was the sound.
We don't have 99% of the people don't do that anymore.
Yes, because the reasoning being that
Just like network cards, it's on board. Bye bye.
That, and the thing is that the card suddenly became a USB device, because the bandwidth available on the USB was big enough that if you wanted the sound card, suddenly you could buy a USB device, and it's much easier to connect the USB device because you don't need the breakout box.
Which I find to be a mistake, but yeah. That's my point of view.
My point of view is that
Professional musician.
Professional musician being a yes or no, the idea of a card that is inside my PC and then having a breakout box because I want the breakout box to be able to connect different connectors defeats the purpose of the card. I dislike that idea because I can use the USB. It has enough bandwidth, so the breakout box is the card itself.
I had the Teratex and the Audi external with the external modules
way back
then.
then.
Those were the thing. They really were a thing.
Yes, RMEs, Sound Blaster Pros,
Yes.
the Sound Blaster. What was it called? The first one that had more transistors than the CPU itself.
16 version, you think, or
No, it was
before?
the FX version or whatever. I don't remember what version was of the.
You're not
Sound
talking
Blaster
about
was the first
Gravis ultrasound, are
one.
you?
No.
Okay.
I'll just
Whatever.
check.
Whatever.
Yes, but I'll check. But the thing is that the sound cards actually managed to get out of the case, and suddenly they became cards that you could use also on the laptop.
But
So
there was another reason why sound cards in the past, way back then, were a mandatory thing. They were used to connect the CD-ROM to it.
yes, they had the CD-ROM, and they used to be connected to the CD-ROM. They had
Digital audio.
Some of them had the controller for the CD-ROM.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Some of them had a digital audio connector of them. You could use the CD-ROM as an analog device and then play
Music?
analog music through the CD, through the graphic, through the sound card, and then mix it. So you had a digital mixer that enabled you to do this, and they were more or less things that you had to do because when laptops came out, they had their own sound cards. The default desktop up until
2000 something, yeah.
something didn't have a sound.
Correct.
It didn't have any sound, just the small beep.
Or network. It was exactly the same, the progression that happened there.
Yes, but for most of the people, sound is more important than network.
You think?
Yes.
Nowadays.
Nowadays, no. But back way then, the
Yeah, it
ability
was.
of your desktop to play a CD
Yeah,
was amazing.
it was.
Because you didn't...
Or MP3s, as the case may be.
Okay, but
Still the same thing.
the ability to play the CDs was an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Then what happened was that the sound card became something that could be connected to USB, and right now
And Firewire and Thunderbolt afterwards.
I only know the extremely high-end sound cards that are connected to PCI Express. I know
and
that
they are getting smaller and smaller in terms of the amount of available models as well.
I don't think that the amount of available models makes any sense, because right now I know only about the ASIC cards that are specifically tailored for a specific usage scenario.
Radio.
They are able to do enormous amount of processing on the card itself, but they are, when it comes to price, they're something like about $3,000 and then going up. And they are designed for a specific scenario, for a specific usage case,
Outliers.
and they are completely outliers. Nobody's going to buy those.
Yeah,
There is not even a second-hand market for those,
of course.
because the whoever bought them is going to use them until they break.
Yeah.
And this is something that's going to just remain the same, and we are not going to be caring about this, since the cards are not going to reappear on the PCI Express. Nobody needs them.
Yeah.
It's much easier to buy I don't know, a 70 euro Behringer on somewhere and just plug it in the USB.
Just like you did.
Like it
How
did.
is that working out for you?
What I would say is that $70 Behringer, 70 euros Behringer right now is the same thing as the 15 euro PCI card back then. So just a generic card that is able to provide you with some amount of audio without too much hassle, but not as good as the normal audio card.
Let's see what happens when you upgrade to a 200 euro universal audio card, which you're going to do soon. And then we're going to have the discussion.
I know that it's going to be better. But the thing is that the same as with the microphones that I bought you, and we are waiting for those to come from China. We are just going to compare those the microphones that are
Copies of the copy
copies of
with
the
the
copy,
original,
but at the same time they're one order of magnitude cheaper than the original.
or even more. Yeah, it's just insane.
So what I'm trying to say is that whenever you're dealing with desktops, you have enormous leverage when it comes to what you want to buy and when you can buy. You can buy
options are there.
The options are there. You can buy still right now. You can buy a graphics card that's going to be 50 euros, and the graphics card is going to be 2,500 euros, and everything in between. This is something that only the desktop can provide.
Okay, unless you do eGPU on a PC, which works really well.
Okay, but
expensive.
Yes, but when it comes to laptops, this is impossible.
Yeah, I could do it on this one, but generally speaking, you're correct.
Because in desktop world, I can upgrade whatever I want to.
Yes.
If I want to upgrade the network, because I have a 10G network, okay, say 60, 70 euros,
eBay,
up to
Intel.
1,000, depending on the network adapter, but I can do it.
Yeah.
If I want to do a fiber channel on my desktop,
No problem.
No problem.
You want some?
No.
I have spares.
Yes, I know. Me too. But the problem is I don't have the other side, so I need.
I have switch as well. You don't have the storage though.
No, I don't have the storage, and if you have the storage for free, that would be nice.
Maybe I do.
Okay, we'll talk. Anyways,
what else? What else has been removed or upgraded to some kind of a different, let's say, usage model? So we talked graphics, we talked USB, PS2, keyboard.
Everything has been upgraded to outside because the grabbers right now. You cannot get. You can, but you are not going to get video or audio grabbers from the outside. They're going to be part of the case. You can get some Blackmagics, but usually what you would do would probably be a separate device that's going to be an outside of your desktop.
I would, there are two opposing directions. There's
Yes.
either external one, which is more regular, normal users who just need something, and you have metaphor Blackmagics, which we also have. This is for more professional workflow, multiple inputs, multiple outputs, that type of operation, and much more expensive.
Yes, but then it also comes to you are either way going to buy a separate console that's going to be the control console for the
That's
for the
software
device.
part as well.
But also we are going to buy a hardware console for the control
No,
because
no, no. Console controlling software so that it controls the car.
yes,
That's
yes,
what
yes,
it-
yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. But what is going to happen is that we are seeing much more things being put out of the desktop, but still within the desktop. And one of the biggest things that hasn't changed is that what the desktop provides you is the ability to upgrade the drives. Right
You know
now,
why all of that annoys me?
no.
All that you just said. Not you, but the
Okay.
fact that what you said is true.
Yes, I know.
Because of the fact that that just consumes way more space.
Yes,
And it's annoying as hell.
yes, but on the other hand,
There is no on the other hand.
On the other hand, when I see the amount of power that certain devices require, I like the space because the space provides
GPU.
cooling. Space provides cooling.
Yeah.
I can cool those things. If I have to cram everything inside a small laptop case, usually I'm going to either have to put up with much slower hardware, or I'm going to have a problem with the cooling.
Yep.
So this way I prefer the desktops. Also, the desktops are much cheaper now for a given configuration.
Okay. Okay.
And the other thing is that what we should be talking about are the monitors.
Really?
Yes, because I started with the generic green screen monitor. Then I upgraded to Amber monitor. That was an Hercules based. Then I had that awful generic VGA monitor that was that has that enormous bulbous CRT, and it was crappy as hell. Then I was doing something, and I was able to upgrade to Sony Trinitron.
I know.
And then I haven't looked back. I still have that Sony. Today I moved it to another storage. And this is probably the best monitor that I have. Still. You know that you can actually sell Trinitrons right now.
Yeah, I know. They're crazy expensive.
Yes, because people want to play on the CRT monitors.
Yeah, but they're crazy expensive. I
Yes,
checked
no.
recently.
Yes, I know. And this is one of those things that you shouldn't be trying to save money on. The monitor has to be an expensive one.
Oh, I agree.
Now, the monitors that on the laptops compared to what you can get for the same amount of money in the desktop space, there is basically no comparison. You can get much bigger monitors with much better screens because of two things. First, you have the space, and the other thing is that you have the power available. You are not limited by the amount of power that you have inside your laptop.
You want to tell me that your home monitors are not as good as this one, or you want to say that this one is much better than them?
If I had this monitor and this resolution, I would probably need to pay the amount for a smaller family car when it comes to the screen state that I can create at home. Because right now I'm running three 32-inch monitors at home. This monitor is amazing, but I want to have bigger screens. As I said, I'm older now, so I need bigger fonts, and I also want a good image. Retina screens are amazing, but they don't scale up.
What if they could?
They can, but take a look at the prices.
You mean the studio displays or
Yes.
whatnot? Yeah. No, I don't think that that's the same thing, but yeah, you're on the correct path. I just made an order because I'm switching my setup, as I'm sure you know, a little bit, removing some stuff from my apartment. I made an order for additional Samsung 28, so I can have two of them, and I have two 24, and I have one 24 on the side. I have 5 of them on my screen. Very happy with them. And it was only after a couple of years of using them that I started realizing how much of a good investment it was to buy good monitors.
I am buying the best monitors that I can afford for as long as I know that I exist, simply because this man enabled me to live through my 40s without the need for the glasses. One of the things that people do wrong is that they buy monitors that are bad.
Yep.
They buy monitors that are unfocused, that have
They're blurry.
They have bad matrices, so the brightness and the contrast is awful.
And usually also paired with the habit of people of using way too many blue colors on their screens, which has significant impact on your eyes, by the way.
And then when people are upgrading the desktops, sometimes they forget then that they can switch the connector to the monitor. So I know a lot of people who are still running VGA connectors, and the VGA does not have enough bandwidth, so the image is blurry.
Yep.
And they don't understand, but that was just by using another connector is going to be €7 or something. They can drastically improve the image.
Sometimes changing the wallpaper might be helpful as well, especially in that scenario.
Yes.
Because usually in VGA you have smaller resolution. When you go to 4K, all of a sudden the wallpaper is so blurry.
Yes, and the thing is that the monitors are one of the biggest selling points, because I cannot upgrade the monitor on my laptop. Even if the laptop it has an amazing monitor like this one, I still want a bigger one. I want a bigger monitor because I need multiple monitors.
Yes.
And this is much more complicated on a laptop.
It is. It's doable, but it's complicated.
And especially when it comes to something like an Apple.
Yeah.
Because the upgradability of the Apple is possible, but this is the cheapest one, and this
one
is the
monitor
reason why I
only.
bought it. But this is one monitor only. But the other thing is that if I want to buy anything for this, I need to invest more than this laptop is worth.
Yeah.
And this is simply something that is just completely out of any normal thing.
Okay.
The other thing is that the replacement parts for the desktops are cheap
and available.
If you want to buy a new keyboard, if you spill something on the keyboard,
yep,
nothing is lost. You just buy another keyboard.
Yeah.
If you buy a decent keyboard, it's going to be spill-proof nowadays. If you want a decent mouse, they're available from, I don't know, probably couple of euros up to hundreds of euros.
Yep.
If you want to have a motherboard, you have probably something starts with something under 100 euros up to 600 euros.
I was just looking at it, even below 100 euros, motherboards are available.
So the processors, there are probably hundreds of different types models, right now. Especially because you can go to the secondary market and you can buy an old workstation and get much more for your money than you would expect to have.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that happened is that in the last, I would call it 5 or 6 years, the performance difference between different computers has been shrinking.
Yes.
And you can buy a perfectly workable workstation that is 7 years old, that is going to be not as quick as the mid-range computer right now, but much more usable when it comes to everything, because it's going to have much better power supply, it's going to have much better case, much better cooling, it's going to be quiet, it's going to be
especially if you buy a workstation, which sometimes means workstation graphic cards as well, which can be a big plus.
If you're not playing and you want stable high resolution image, you can buy a Tesla or something like this.
Quadro, not Tesla.
Quadro, not Tesla. So, but you can buy an NVIDIA workstation class video cards, and you're going to get amazing amount of buck for your price.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Do you have? So both of us in the past couple of years, we switched computers to newer ones. You did it actually twice. You have AMD and Intel, and for the first time in I don't know how many years. I do know, since first time since my X58, which I still have, that one, which is 14 years old. 14 years old. For the first time after that, I actually assembled a new desktop, which is Z790 based. If I went on the market today and wanted to buy a computer for me, and I'm not now going into super, outlier use cases,
Okay.
I would still go with that one. I was very happy with
Me too.
everything that works. The recent problems that AMD had with chipsets, with BIOSes, with memory, with some of the CPU problems that they have, 3D cache problems, whatnot, just kind of reiterated the importance of being a little bit more, let's say, forward thinking and backwards looking in terms of the technology that I use. I was semi-smart enough to buy 64 gigabytes of memory out of the box for it. Works very well. I just added 6 terabytes of SSDs to it on the Asus PCI Express card. And I would still buy that if I needed a high-end PC, no matter what. To that point, if I wanted to go some kind of a mid-range, I would go with the same premise, just different CPU, in the same way in which we assembled the computer for our colleague a couple of months ago.
Yes.
So 13400, something like that.
Yes, I think yes.
It was, I think, 13,400 model of CPU, 64 gigs of memory, a little bit cheaper gigabyte board, because Z790 boards can nowadays be had for less than 200 euros new. Still a lot of money. If you needed to go a little bit lower than that, then there are quite a few available chipsets below that, H670, B670, and whatnot. Those motherboards are way cheaper.
But if you want to go even below, you can run right now buy small form factor cases that are usually completely functional PCs based on N100, N95. So the slowest chips that Intel has, and they're something like 140 euros, 150 euros in a case with the processor, with some amount of memory, and with some amount of SSD. The only thing that I wanted just to mention was that the a possibility to upgrade the disks is one of those things that I really like about the desktop.
Me too.
Not simply because I can upgrade the disks themselves, because that was always the case, but the idea of being able to put in multiple NVMEs, because for most usage cases, the half terabyte of NVMe is more than enough. Okay, you can even tell that normal users are going to be quite satisfied with 256 gigabytes. But if you need more, almost the entirety of the motherboard available today are able to accommodate more than one NVMe. Even if that's not the case, you can buy a separate card that's going to enable you to connect to NVMe for, I don't know, 20 euros or so. So you can have what would be considered crazy fast disk storage for what would be marginally expensive than buying an old disk.
But actually, the reason why I mentioned that we assembled basically 3 PCs in the past less than 2 years is something else. And this is not for dissing. This is rational discussion. What is the AMD's value proposition now? You are much more in tune with that because you actually have a couple of those systems, both at home and in some of the clients' offices that you're using.
I honestly don't know. I honestly don't know right now because I think that in this particular moment in time, Intel is winning. Having said that, I want to see what is going to happen next because AMD made a breakthrough with the Series 3 chips. And the Ryzens and the Threadrippers that were done in the Series 3 were something that was basically a big breakthrough when it comes to new technology. And right now, I don't know if AMD is holding back and waiting to see what is going to happen with Intel. Because right now, what Intel did with the 14th generation of the Pentium,
they shouldn't have done that.
This was a completely
unnecessary.
Wrong. It was unnecessary and it was wrong. Because what it did is that it showed a lot of people. It may be that it's wrong, but it showed a lot of people that right now Intel doesn't have anything to show. They said, okay, this is going to be a small upgrade because you are just changing the process, but the performance-wise and price-wise, nobody got anything out of the new generation. Now I want to see what is going to happen with the AMD, because what AMD was doing for the last couple of years, they have essentially been doing the same thing as Intel. They're just slowly upgrading the chips. They're calling them new version, so version 5, version 7, but version 7 and version 3 are more or less quite like each other. And AMD is, I'm expecting them to show something that's going to be different.
And expect the same from Intel, even more so.
Yes, and then Intel came out with the idea of that they are not going to compete with the ARM because the ARM is not going to be the thing to have. And this is one of those things, because AMD wasn't committed to anything, and they are not committed to anything right now. They weren't committed to when somebody was when the people were asking what's going to come next. They didn't say anything. They waited for Intel to show their hands. Right now, the hands that Intel has shown has been weak. And either Intel is waiting for AMD, so they have something prepared that's going to be completely different architecture. Or
I know that they're working on something.
Yes, they are working on something, because
Chiplet based and with cache integrated. There were quite a few rumors already out there.
But the thing is that right now, this is going to be probably the next year is going to be the year of the complete cut off all the old technologies.
Reckoning a little bit.
Yes, I think that what's going to happen is that we are going to have to scrap all the other all the motherboards, all the memory things, and all the the memory maybe not.
Yeah.
DDR5 is going to
stay.
be okay, but the motherboards, the chipsets, the architectures, the kernels for all the operating systems are going to be scrapped, because they are going to be needing to do something like what Apple did with the ARM. So they're going to start anew.
Interesting.
And so right now, I don't see any reason why to buy AMD over Intel. Intel 13th generation is probably the best buy right now.
I'm quite surprised that you're saying that, by the way.
No, I'm just considering it a tool. And right now, I don't see any price difference and any performance difference between the latest generation of the AMD
For vast majority of the
for
use
vast
cases.
majority
Yeah,
of
okay,
users.
I get it.
Okay. If we are dealing with Threadripper Pros and we are dealing with this kind of users, so workstation users,
Then
this is where
it's a different story.
AMD is going to tramp over Intel every time.
Yeah.
But then we are not talking about user-centric CPUs, because we are talking about CPUs that are going to cost 3,000 euros plus. And this is not something that the user would buy. This is a workstation class. And then when it comes to workstation class PCs, suddenly Intel has nothing to show.
Yeah.
And when it comes to servers, Epics are right now pretty good. Especially if you need extremely high core count, and if you need a stable platform. Epic
A lot
has
of PCI Express lanes.
Epic has its own merits on that, and you can buy pretty decent, pretty cheap servers that are able to do amazing amount of work in a single server. And they are not going to cost you arm and a leg. And this is where Intel is lagging behind. But when it comes to desktops, right now, ARM when it comes to laptops, Intel when it comes to desktops.
Okay.
When it comes to workstations, AMD. When it comes to servers, probably AMD. It could be that Intel has some outliers that are specific for your usage case. For example, if you're trying to create a VMware environment, I probably wouldn't go for the Epic, just simply because of the higher core count.
Licenses,
yes.
Yeah.
I would get much better performance experience when it comes to newer Intel Xeons Platinum versions and the gold versions, because I would get probably the higher bandwidth when it comes to memory, and the license itself is going to eat the difference in the price of the server.
And it's better have two servers than one.
Yes,
that's exactly the correct design decision. Yes, I agree with you completely.
Yes, so when it comes to different things, it basically depends on what you're trying to do.
Okay, that's perfectly reasonable. I think we're done. I think we've done a very long episode about this. Very happy with the discussion that we had. Do you have anything to add, or are we wrapping it up?
Let's wrap it up.
Okay. So, thank you for being with us yet again. This was another episode of That IT Show podcast. This time we talked about desktops and their merits and their use cases. We'll see you in the next episode. Until then, he's been Yasmin, I've been Vedran, and bye-bye.
Bye.